Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another chapter of Aeternium Gate. I'm sorry that we missed you last week, but there were some real life things going on for me, and that kept me from being here. And it's hard to do this without me. It'd also be hard to do it without all of these people over here in the book. But we're going to cover a quick business things like we usually do. Schedule for the rest of the week. Saturday, there will be Unlawful Disorder at 8 a.m. Eastern over on twitch.tv/DoRespite. So go check that out. There will be no Far From Home this week, however. And then we will be here on Monday for Paddington again. So join us for those things. And just a reminder, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. It's very helpful. Turn on that bell to get notifications when we go live. Smash that like button and share us with a friend. Also, we're entirely crowdfunded and supported in what we do. So if you like what we do, check out patreon.com/DoRespite. And for just a few bucks a month, you can keep this train a-rolling, just like the trains at Sarah's house. How are you, Sarah? It's fair. And Shawnee B, how are you? And Frito, how are you? Man. Shots fired by Frito. That's fair. I'm glad you are all good. What? Shouldn't be that way. This is another one of those OBS says you're unmuted and I have levels thing. But you're not. So hang on just a second. Try and talk now. Unfortunately, the YouTube delay is set to be half a second, which is less than the base 3 seconds for Twitch, so that concerns me. Nope. All right, we'll be back then. All right, we're back. Let's see if we can hear people, starting with Sarah.
Hello.
And how about Shawnee?
Let's see. Yeah, I hear Sarah.
All right. That should work then. Cool. I literally turned off OBS and turned it back on again. I changed nothing. I just turned it off and on again. Last time, on Aeternium Gate, you guys... Oh, wait, we didn't introduce Sam. We didn't introduce any of you because you were all muted. But Sam's here now. How are you, Sam?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here now.
We are also glad for you to be here now. All right. So now that we're all here. Last time we played Aeternium Gate, you guys convinced some dwarves not to send an expedition down and open, a portal to death. It was a good thing. You learn some stuff about what's called the Weave. You saw some scary things in the weave. Then an old lady died. That was sad. Then you left. In fact, you actually convinced one of the triumvirate generals to stop being a triumvirate general and leave to become Sage's caretaker. Not Sage's, Hope's caretaker. You made your way up to, after quite a long journey from Oberon, where you were, you made yourself up to a secluded valley hidden in the mountains where a village had begun to be built. And as it turns out, we're not there anymore because we decided off stream that 5 years have passed since that fateful day where you dropped Hope off with her new caretakers. And for reasons you can't quite explain, even looking back now, you chose to go your separate ways for a time. You all ventured off to discover this new infant world, essentially. This world that has its opportunity to forge its own path and its own destiny, and likewise, you have that opportunity. So, having done that, you've spent 5 years apart from one another, off doing various things. We're going to cover really quickly in an interlude kind of fashion what it is that you've all been doing for the past 5 years. And we're going to start with Flora. What has Flora been up to in the 5 years since a day that is marked on all of your personal calendars? For some reason, again, for reasons you can't quite describe, you just know it as Hope's Dawn.
Well, at first, she knew that she needed to learn how to become a druid. So she left the area with the tower and she started going to different cities and towns and asking around and trying to see if she could find any druids. And there weren't any seemingly in the area. So she knew how to work caravans because she'd done that before. So she would either hire on as a cook or sometimes as a healer. And she would use that as a way to travel to a farther away city or town and ask in that area to find some druids to teach her. And after doing that for almost a year, she finally realized the magnitude of the contract that she had signed, that there were no druids anywhere. She was actually the first one, and she had no idea how to be a druid. So after that, she decided to try and find the nature spirit of winter to try and teach her more about nature magic, and she succeeded in that. And so for the next 3 years, she spent training with not just the spirit of winter, because she's only there for winter, so with the different various seasons. And I would imagine too that since the last time she had seen Istia, she was frozen in a ball on the ground. She was excited to be able to meet her for the first time and learn from her and see what the spring baby is all about. And so she's been training and learning, and she's learned some new spells to help her. And then she decided that it was time to go and see if she could find, now that she knows more about nature magic and possibly how to spot it, to try and find other people who maybe have it. Maybe they're using it and they don't realize it, or maybe they have the potential for it. She felt like maybe she knew enough, she should try and find some others. And as she had just started wandering again, she started dreaming of a certain place and her friends. And so she started heading in that direction in her search for other people with the potential to be druids.
All right. Belmere, what have you been up to for 5 years?
Belmir very much went back to his roots, more or less, in terms of his desire and his knowledge, wanting to learn about the world that he was in. Previously, it had been trying to discover the history of what had happened after the Third War, 8,000 years in the future, and trying to understand why the world was in the state that it was. Coming back so far, there was no idea of what the world was like back then, aside from a few random myths and legends. And so after opening Hope's daycare, not really, Belmir went back to Oberon for a while and learned what dwarves are actually like, not the cliff and surface dwelling dwarves that he knew of, but what his people were like at their roots. And with that knowledge, he started to learn more about the world and how it is currently. He's traveled a fair amount, as he's accustomed to, not staying in a place for very long, and has traveled to various cities and learned about different races and cultures and their own personal histories. At the same time, he's spent some time writing in Hope's journal, kind of as a documentation of her first 5 years here on Emios. He has kept kind of a weather eye, if you will, to things of the occult and looking for potential signs or portents that someone could be looking for a gate, because that threat is still there in his mind, but not at the forefront anymore.
Yeah, you travel back to Oberon probably once every other year to essentially help quell plans of another expedition to Khazad-ar Azuf, because it continues to be something that gets put on the table. And so you go back. Also, unlike your companions, a dove comes to visit you roughly once a month, once every 45 days or so, and it carries a letter. And it's a letter from Hope, though it's always written in another hand. It's never written in the same kind of handwriting. And it's just a description of what Hope has been doing, and that aids in your,
Heraldry.
Yeah, in your heraldry. But it also always contains, it's not always just a message of what she's been doing. It's not a travel log, essentially, but it always is expressions of her stance on things and her feelings on things and her beliefs and how she's interacting with people. The town where her encampment has continued to grow as her message is kind of spreading across the continent, and it has grown into a place called Haven, and lots of people find their way to Haven. And at this point, based on the most recent letter you received before you two began to have dreams, Haven is probably a good 250, 300 people strong at this point. Meanwhile, Sage has had their own series of adventures over the past 5 years that have actually taken them to very different and kind of odd places in comparison to some of the others who've spent a lot of time on the mainland of the continent, whereas Sage spent some time elsewhere. What have you been up to?
Sage just decided to walk or run or hop, skip, jump, dance, whatever, just keep moving. Generally speaking, following the sun in the morning. For the first couple of years, I'm assuming they just traveled and would stop anytime they saw baby versions of things with their parents. So anytime because they have to learn how to be the foremother. That's the job that they've got, but they don't really understand the concept of a mother. So that's what they're doing, just kind of going, okay, cool, this is how a mum acts. And then they spend sort of time acting like that mother that they saw until they see another mother, and then they start acting like that mother instead. But at some point they cross the path of someone you are going to describe, I think.
Yeah. So eventually in your journey, you reached a point where you hit a coastline and you could not continue to go anywhere else save on a boat. And so Sage got on a boat, and Sage didn't really know where the boat was going. Sage just got on the boat. Belmir had given Sage a little bit of money. And because Sage had spent so much time just around family-esque beings, some humanoid, many wild animals, Sage's time just observing the wolf pack was a very interesting time for Sage, I would imagine. But eventually reached this coast, paid for passage, just wherever this boat was going. And you were on a boat for about 2 months. And then they arrived in a place that you grew to know was called Veakaris. And Veakaris is the small southern continent. And it is very different from anything else that Sage had experienced. You spent a lot of time in the country, the province of Iora, and it's in Iora that you met a woman by the name of Gentry Shaw. And you met Gentry performing feats of magic, and you essentially, in a very Sage fashion, were like, hey, I can do that. And then you did something. And you promptly got scolded for how you'd done it. You promptly got informed that, yes, you'd done it, but how you had done it had been very undisciplined and had been very dangerous and had been very problematic. And almost not of your own will, but sort of just at suggestion and curiosity, she went her own way, didn't offer to train you, but Sage came to understand that she frequented the same kind of section where she bought like a melon and some things every day, and Sage would show up and Sage would do a magic trick and it would get Gentry's attention. And after about a month of this, Gentry finally just took Sage by the ear and dragged them back to her tower and began teaching Sage and began training Sage in the art of magic. And this lasted for the next 2.5 years of Sage's life. We're living in this tower, sleeping in essentially a broom closet because there wasn't another space for Sage to be, and just being taught. And it started out as a very discipline-heavy taskmaster. If you're going to be here and you're going to practice this and you're going to do this, you're going to do it right. And over time, the two of them became friends. And Sage has only recently left the tower to venture forth on their first sojourn, is what it's called. Essentially, it's a go out and spend Gentry's told you to go out and spend a year in the world and learn about magic through observance and through careful practice of what you've learned, and then come back and essentially report in a year's time what you've learned. And so, again, with somebody else's money in hand, you boarded a ship leaving Veakaris. But while you stood there on the docks to buy your passage, you'd begun having these dreams. And you'd been given a ship to go to a very specific place through recommendation by Gentry. But you had also spoken to Gentry about these dreams that you'd been having. And Gentry said, when you get there, if you feel pulled to go somewhere else, your sojourn is yours, go where you want. And so rather than board the boat that was headed up toward, headed north to Aeternium, you instead boarded a boat that was headed west to Squall's End. And that's where we find the three of you, is either just arriving or having been in Squall's End for a very short time, or in the case of Sage, standing on the bow of a ship watching as this city that for some reason you feel drawn to appears on the horizon. Squall's End is a major seaport in the southwestern part of the Debarak continent. And it is, to steal George Lucas's phrase, it's a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Generally, it's pirate town, more or less. But you have all been dreaming for months now, pushing 6 months for those of you who have been dreaming the longest. You've been dreaming of your friends who you haven't seen in 5 years. You have been dreaming of finding yourself aboard a boat with those friends. You find yourself sailing with those friends. And then you find yourself seated in some sort of outdoor feast. And you're gathered around a table feasting, and at the center table, there is a mirror. It's the only thing there. No one is eating at this table, though there are places set. And a storm rises up over the sea and comes across this gathering. And you all continue to just sit and eat through this storm. And the storm knocks the mirror over and it shatters, and every time without fail, the instant you hear that sound of that mirror shatter and you see the pieces start to spread, you wake up. And so, early summer, approaching the storm season, as you have been told, Peter and Sarah, go ahead and roll just a d6, and just whichever one of you gets higher, that's the one who got to Squall's End first.
6.
All right. So, Flora, you rolled into Squall's End about 3 weeks ago. And in your case, it's been the whispers on the wind, it's been the rustling of the leaves, those kind of things that pushed you in this direction. You've had those same dreams, but, Sage got on a boat that was headed to Squall's End because they felt that was the boat to get on. Belmere probably looked up a bunch of books and figured out where places would be outdoor feasts and came to where a place that could get him there at least. But you have followed the whispers on the wind. So you are here. And you found yourself in a rough, kind of seedy tavern. And you have heard rumors just there that there is a dwarven trade caravan coming into town later this afternoon, and that they have been spotted coming south. And for some reason, just this feeling of excitement sparks up on the inside of you, because you just know for some reason that Belmir is going to be with that caravan. And sure enough, as you make your way to the gates as that caravan is arriving, you see a dwarf seated upon a donkey, much like the first time other people met him, many, many years in the future. Looking as grumpy and, gray-bearded as ever. And you see Belmir.
She'd walk over to him. Hey, Belmir. It's been a while.
Of course you're here. Why wouldn't you be?
Here is where I'm supposed to be. I didn't think it would take 3 weeks for something to happen, though. I got myself a job at one of the inns cooking.
The
I'm sure
salty
they're very
squid.
appreciative.
I've learned all sorts of new things about cooking seafood here.
Yeah, Roscoe is very grateful for your work at the salty squid.
I don't really care much for fish, but that's fine.
In this town, that
cook
could be a
right.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry. If you cook it right, it's quite good. So, why are you here?
I've been dreaming of this place.
So have I.
And Sage has also been in my dreams. Have you seen her?
Haven't. In my dreams, I have. I keep hoping she'll show up here, but she hasn't yet. I went back to the tower a couple times, but neither one of you were there. So I only stayed a few days and left again.
Yeah, I haven't been to Haven in a while. But I get messages that hope is well.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I worry about her sometimes, but she has a lot of good people with her there now.
That she does. And the man whose name I forget has done a good job of taking care of her.
You mean Drevin?
Yes.
He's a good man. Do you want to come back to the salty squid?
Sure, lead the way.
Okay. You are on your way back. You are aboard the ship, Sage. And a storm has kicked up as it is moving on later into the evening. and the captain makes an announcement that due to the storm, there is going to be difficulty getting into Squall's End tonight, and that they will be proceeding around the hook down toward one of the other harbor cities and coming back to Squall's End. This doesn't sit super well with Sage as a thing. So I'm going to spend the GM Benny, and also for storytelling purposes because it helps me bring in Sam. Somewhere about 8 o'clock at night, Sage gets the brilliant idea in the middle of the storm to jump off the back of the ship and swim the rest of the way to the harbor. It's not that far. Sage hasn't learned a lot about perspective yet.
It's also, elemental manipulation is still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I can push myself.
Yep. Which is where we find Sage is essentially using their magic power as sort of like a water turbine to propel themselves forward. But it's at that point that they remember PowerPoints are a thing. And perspective was a thing that they haven't quite mastered. And so it was a lot further away than they thought. And so there is a group, a tribe, in fact, a tribe of orcs that frequents this area, known as the Stormkites. They are seafarers, almost Viking-esque kind of orcs. And one of their number is currently out on essentially a pleasure cruise, but more of like a reflective kind of trip in a small craft. And so it is that, Omthu, you see some sort of struggling and thrashing humanoid figure in the water. And your friend, another orc by the name of Kenna, who is happening to pilot the boat at this time, looks to you and she says, "What do you think that is? Humans aren't so stupid to pilot their massive boats in this kind of weather."
No, but clearly this one is in danger. We should help them.
You're gonna make us be heroic, aren't you?
Someone is in need. We are able to help.
And so she begins to direct the cutter craft over, and you are able to smoothly, for plot appropriate reasons, lift Sage up out of the water and deposit them on the floor of your ship. A couple of things occur in that moment. One, Sage is still essentially trying to get their spell restarted. So there is some amount of magic going on as you approach. Every once in a while you'd get close and then Sage would just like burst forward a handful of yards and you'd have to like catch up, and it was really odd. But when you pull them out of the water, Shani, go ahead and describe Sage for us, given that this will be the first Terani Omthu has ever seen.
Sage is about 4'10", real small. Green skin, essentially sage-colored skin. Hair is darker, but hair is leaves. So long tendrils of leaf, basically. Otherwise, looks young, but shaped adult, if that makes sense. So young in the face, fully formed humanoid.
It's probably a moment like Omthu is able to they get the boat alongside and he just sort of scoops her up. He sort of turns to sort of place her onto the boat and but there's a moment he just pauses and his eyes sort of go wide. He's just like holding. Oh, apologies. And he sort of puts you down and goes, what are you? Are you person turning into a plant? Plant turning into a person? Are you something else?
No, I'm Sage.
He sort of looks a little horrified. He's like, oh no. And he holds out his hand. He goes, I am Omthu. It is a pleasure to meet you, Sage.
Hello, Omthu. You're very big.
Yeah, go ahead and describe Omthu for us.
So, Omthu is probably just a little bit more than 6.5 foot tall, 6'7" but very broad. Ash gray skin. Short cropped hair, which is just this deep black, and a very long beard that has been sort of essentially sort of tied off a bit at the end so it doesn't get everywhere. But
And meticulously groomed around your tusks.
yeah, so tusks sort of poking out from out of this beard, and he's wearing sort of a combination of like hide but also like chitin, sort of as like armor essentially. Couple of weapons like at his hip and slung over his back, and do you take his hand when or do you just sort of say hello and then just sort of look at him?
I look at the hand. I don't think anyone's ever held a hand out.
Gentry would have taught you to shake hands.
Gentry would have taught me that.
Yeah,
okay, then yeah, I'll
Vakarus.
shake a hand. Yeah.
He gives you a very warm handshake. He's got a massive grin at this point. I apologize for the rudeness, but I have never seen anyone like you before.
I'm Terani.
I have never heard of anyone like you before.
I think I'm the only one.
Really? That is fascinating. This
What
is
an
my
owl.
friend, Kenna. He indicates to the
Hello.
orc currently piloting the boat. It's probably not big
It's
enough to be a
definitely
ship.
just a little cutter boat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kenna raises her hand. Kenna is much shorter. She's only in the, just over 6 foot range. So, half a foot shorter. Still much bigger than Sage, but a lot more lithe and lean. Wearing, it almost looks like oiled leather, but it looks much thinner, and it is pulled quite tight. But you see as she's piloting and as the rain of the storm and the water that's sloshing up is literally just beating on both her armor as well as on Omthu's armor. You just see the water kind of beating and wicking off as a thing. It doesn't seem to be absorbing whatsoever. And she is rocking one on each side, kind of if you divided a head in thirds, one at each line of thirds, just these spikes about 2-inch long of just hair that have been gelled up into little spiked mohawks.
Your hair looks dangerous.
Sometimes I put metal on it, and then it is dangerous, but right now it's not so much. And her skin is actually more of a blue gray than that ash gray. It's definitely got a definite blue tint to it.
Do orcs in this time period look the same as 8,000 years in the future?
They're more primal, if that makes sense. There's just literally just less of a civilized cast to the way they carry themselves, the way they look. Like Olmthu's distinct level of civilization is very unique. In orcs you've encountered, they're still very tribal in this time period. They're still very, I'm trying to think of a word that isn't offensive because I'm not trying to be offensive, but they have kind of an old ways about them, right? They're still very primitive, in a way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Whereas these seem almost cosmopolitan to an extent in comparison to anybody else orcish that you have met.
To be fair, even amongst his own people, Omthu was probably
Very cosmopolitan.
a little bit more so again.
Yeah, there's a level of refinement in Olmthu's voice that I as a GM can't remove from mine to put in Kenna's voice. Like Kenna just sounds kind of unrefined, whereas there's just this smooth kind of quality to Olmthu's that almost begets education like of some of the highly educated people that you met in Vehikaris.
What were you doing in the water? It's dangerous in the storm.
She was swimming
Yes.
poorly.
Hey,
Well,
I need to get to Squall's End.
you are swimming to Squall's End
Well,
from here. In this.
Yeah. Yes.
Were you on that boat?
Yes.
Why did you not stay on the boat?
Because it wasn't going to Squall's End fast enough.
And you thought you could get there faster.
I was working on it. I would have been there faster than tomorrow.
Unless you drowned.
I told you I was working on it.
You're going to make me take her to Squall's End, aren't you?
Yes, I am, yes.
Fine. She adjusts the rudder and adjusts some sails, and she looks over and says, "We're going against the wind. The two of you are going to have to row."
Okay.
Yeah, Omthu just gets into position and just starts.
Do I know how to row?
Oh, most assuredly not.
I didn't think so. I will copy.
Yeah, eventually you're able to match up with you notice that Kenna is in the back and she's steering the rudder, but with her foot she's kind of pushing on this small pedal, and that pedal is hitting a stretched hide kind of drum, and it's providing the rhythm for you to row to. And so eventually you're able to, Sage is smart enough that eventually they're able to catch on, and you guys make okay time to Squall's End. So it is that eventually you guys pull up along the docks of Squall's End. And you find yourself staring up at a sign that you aren't sure why, but seems very familiar, Sage. And it is a carved wooden squid. And it is literally holding kind of pewter salt shakers in each of its tentacles.
I think I have to go in here now.
And Olmthu, you have been in the Squid before. Like it's a good disreputable tavern on the dockside.
This is where you need to go.
I think so. You want to come with me?
I would worry if I didn't. Let's put it that way.
How long are you gonna be?
I don't
If
know.
you-
I'm
Not
going to
you.
have to wait for the dream to... Oh.
It is all right, Kenna. If I take too long, do not need to wait for me. I can find my way home in the morning, should I need to.
Oh, I'm definitely going back. I don't want to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. The last time I was here, I was got in that big fight, remember? Not even allowed in there.
Yes. I forgot about that.
That's fair.
Well,
The voice in the sky hadn't told you about it yet. It is definitely an appropriate way to get this NPC that I created because we realized Sam had no boating skill out of the way very quickly.
yeah, Viking one, that sounds great. Oh, wait. It's appropriate I don't have boating skill. It's just awkward for this very moment.
Yep. So Kenna will leave,
Yeah.
but something Sage said raises alarm bells, and not alarm bells, but kind of alert hackles in Olmthu's head, which is they said something about we have to wait until the dream. And for about a fortnight now, Olmthu has been having a dream of sitting around a table at some sort of outdoor feast, surrounded by people who he doesn't recognize, and some of whom who essentially have like blurred out, kind of fogged out sort of faces. And that table in the center with places set, and the storm kicks up, and that mirror shatters, and you always wake up when that mirror shatters. And Sage has already at this point begun to move toward the tavern because that's Sage. They don't really care if you're coming.
Sage
with
doesn't
them.
wait.
Yeah, he like as he's sort of this. Like I'm assuming Sage isn't one of the people that wasn't essentially fogged out.
Mm-mm.
But it is sort of like now that she's mentioned that he's like that's curious. He's just sort of pondering it as they head in.
Yeah. So you open up the door, Sage, to the salty squid, and it is raucously loud in here. It has not been like you haven't been inside of a building this loud in a long time. The markets in Vehikaris are this loud, but you didn't tend to go in buildings in Vehikaris. You spent a lot of time in the tower, and Gentry had magically enchanted it to be essentially silent in the tower, save for when you guys spoke or the magically enchanted feather duster and broom that kept things clean all the time. But aside from the markets of Vehikaris, you haven't been anywhere this loud in a long time. And it is loud and boisterous, and there's lots of songs and lots of mugs and drinking and those kind of things. But one sound cuts over the din of that, which is you hear a man shouting back into a kitchen an order. And that's not the sound that cuts through. That's the sound that overlays the rest of it. But the sound that cuts through for Sage is a very distinct half-elven voice shouting back to this man that she heard him the first time, and it's on its way. And that is a voice
Sage
you
is-
haven't heard in 5 long years.
Say just pushing through. Excuse me, get out of my way. Move out of the way. Move out of the way now. Get out of my way. And pushing through to get there.
One of the individuals you push, you're pushing your way, you're along the bar, and you push, and you hear this kind of, and that's a voice you also recognize as you bury poor Belmir's face in his beer.
Belmir! Hugs.
All of a sudden, you're being hugged from behind. Beard is just covered in beer foam.
Oh, Sage. Why'd
Hello.
you push me?
Flora's in there. Did you know?
Yes,
Oh.
of
Is
course
she
I
coming
knew.
out?
I mean, she's working.
Oh.
She's
Well-
the cook here.
That makes sense.
At
And
this
everyone
point, yeah.
seems to be.
And Olmthu, you're like watching her just randomly talk to this dwarf. You're just, but very familiarly,
Who is-
like,
yes, not weirded out by talking to a Terani.
or being hugged from behind.
Getting a clue about the relationship. It's something.
Oh. Belmir, look, I found someone else that has a really long beard. This is Omthu.
I turn
Olmthu
more and
holds
look,
out his,
and
holds out his hand and goes, "My name is Olmthu."
for a
What was
half
your
second, I think that's not Cobalt. We have another giant in our party. And I take his hand. I am
What
Belmir.
was Belmir. It is
Yes.
a pleasure to meet you.
And you, I guess.
So grins at
Sage,
you.
who is who?
Omthu helped me get here.
She was trying to make her way here by swimming through the storm. We pulled her out of the water.
Well, she was probably doing better than I would.
And nothing about that surprises Belmir at all, you notice? Like, that statement is just like, yeah, all right, I can see that.
Yep.
Flora, as you sweep out of the kitchen, you got trays all over. You start handing stuff over to the individuals. And you see out of the corner of your eye a color of green skin and, I mean, and not skin, like bark, right? Like, it's definitely bark as a thing. And you see a flowing headdress of, ivy, essentially, that kind of leaves on vines that you haven't seen in 5 years.
She quickly puts the rest of the dishes down, and she was saying something along the lines of, you can't rush good food. That's why the previous cook's food tasted the way it did. And then that's when she notices Sage drops the rest of the plates mostly where they're supposed to go and runs over, Sage, and gives her a hug.
Flora!
Now
I was
there's this
hoping
weird
you'd be
three-way
here.
chain hug going on in front of you, Omthu.
In height order? Is that what's happened? How tall is Flora?
5'6".
Oh my goodness, it is. It's in height order. I love it.
Look, Belmir, she came. Now we're all here.
Oh, you would probably know him through, at least by name, probably.
I do not think we have met.
But you have
And he
definitely
holds out his
eaten
hand
her
again.
food. You've definitely eaten her
Yeah.
food.
My name is Olmthu. What was your name?
Flora Shepherd.
Flora. Flora Shepherd. It is a
Mm.
pleasure to meet you. You have improved the food here marvelously.
It wasn't hard. I mean, all I did was try to give the chef a few suggestions, and he just up and quit. If that's how you're going to be about your cooking, then you're never going to get better.
Make the best food. Flora, I'm hungry.
I don't know. Surge's food is pretty good.
Oh, yes.
You told me that. I never got to taste Surge's food, though. I'll go get something from the back real quick, Sage.
She arrives with fish.
Fish.
Yep. It's probably it's probably a trio of, I know you want a food description. Flora arrives with a trio of fish. She arrives with a wonderfully smoked snapper that is smoked over a local wood. Then she arrives, interestingly enough, with one you did not expect, which is a raw serving of a kind of fish. It's got a very delicate kind of white flesh. You see it's being served essentially as a ceviche with a lot of citric acid and those kind of things. And then the other fish is just this nicely broiled fillet that has, as she brings it to the table, she drops just a small dab of a cultured butter on it that melts down into the fish. And there's a small little saucer of salt to apply your salt to your fish as you wish.
Omir looks at Flora and says, "You had a couple suggestions?"
I mean, his food really was terrible. And she leans in closer and whispers, I found that it's also a really good way to get a job when I need one. Cooks can be really temperamental. The one with the mirror?
Mhm.
And then I followed the whispers on the wind to find out where I should go. I've been here for 3 weeks. What has taken you so long?
I was somewhere else. I was very far away. And it wasn't fast enough. That's why I had to swim.
You weren't on the mainland?
No.
Oh, you were very far away.
Yes. I learned how to do magic without hurting myself.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. And you
Mhm.
can turn it off now, too?
Mostly. And now, as far as I'm aware, I don't know for sure, but as far as I'm aware, nothing opens behind me.
Oh, good.
Oh, yes.
So it's safe. And I spent a lot of time in a tower, in a closet.
Only at night. Only when you were sleeping.
The most important time, voice in the sky.
No, you ate dinner in the tower.
I slept in a closet under the stairs. And now I'm a wizard.
I need you to give me a Benny, please.
No, no, you can't have it.
I feel like you misinterpret the relationship here between GM and player.
Mm,
I mean, you're still young. You should have an extra one.
I do have an extra one. Doesn't mean I want to give it away.
Okay, so with that description of the dream, Olmthu, that dream is
Yeah.
very familiar.
I don't mean to intrude your reunion. You mentioned a dream with a mirror?
Yes. We were sitting at a feast, and then, but no feast.
And the mirror
Flora,
gets
maybe
blown
you're
over.
gonna make it.
The mirror gets blown over and breaks.
Yes.
And the people at the feast, do you recognize them?
Well, I know Flora and Belmir.
Yes, I recognized Sage and Belmir.
Were there others?
Yes, none of which you recognize.
There were others, but I didn't know who they were.
I think I have been having a similar dream.
What is your dream about?
A feast with people I do not recognize, some whose features I cannot make out, and a mirror that is blown over and shatters. And then I wake.
All right, that is very similar. How long have you been having that dream?
Was it 2 weeks, did you say? Or was it
Yeah, about a
longer than that?
fortnight.
They would have started about 2 weeks ago.
Which, interestingly enough, is the last time you were in the Salty Squid.
I was here when it started.
I've been here for 3 weeks, but I've been having the dreams for much longer.
Do you know what they are? The dreams? What they mean?
No. Just that I was supposed to come here. And the whispers on the wind helped me find where here was. And I was hoping, because Belmir and Sage were in the dream, that they would be here too. I haven't seen them in a long time.
Interesting.
$5 is a lot longer than 8,000.
Just
Don't think.
don't worry about
that's-
Only if you
Okay.
get to the end of the 5 years without going through the nether.
Oh. That makes sense.
We've just said a lot of words that
But I'm glad they make sense.
they make no sense to you.
Nope, nether is
look.
not a phrase you're even remotely familiar with.
Flora, does the Salted Squid have a banquet hall? Does that look familiar to you anywhere?
Nope.
No, look around. There's definitely no banquet hall here. The first place I tried to give the cook some suggestions on how to better improve their food was a nicer place, but that cook just took the suggestions and improved their food, so I had to try again somewhere else.
Flora,
Hang on a second.
making a
Hang on a
career out of
second.
ruining other people's careers.
Yeah.
What? If they take my suggestions, they improve their food and they make better food. If they get all butt hurt and stomp out and leave, I didn't make them. That's on them. Caltrian has been talking to me a little bit about being a little too soft-hearted.
Oh, you've been talking to Caltriana.
Yes. She still doesn't like dwarves, though.
Oh. Does she like me?
If I had brought up Sage, does she remember Sage?
Nope, not a bit.
She doesn't remember you, Sage.
She actually doesn't remember anyone but you. She just doesn't like dwarves as a general rule.
Why doesn't anyone remember me?
Well, she doesn't remember Belmere either. She just doesn't like dwarves.
Oh. Surface dwarfs.
Only now Belmere's the only one.
Surface dwarf.
There's lots of grumbling from Belmere as he continues to drink his beer. Most of it unintelligible.
Where are you from?
I am of the Stormkite tribe. We live off the coast, close to where we found you.
Oh. Do you have any good places for feasts?
None that resemble the dream.
Yeah, the sands in that dream, which are something that would stand out a little bit more to Omthu than probably the rest of them. The sands in that dream were black sand beaches, which is not what you have around here. The only place you know of that has black sand beaches would be back to the east, somewhat in the direction of Veakaris. In Aluhai, which is the Empire of the Six Isles.
The sand in the dream is wrong for this area. We do not get black sand. And the only place that I can think of is, well, back east, Luhai. I understand they have black sand.
Do you need a boat to get there?
Yes. It's a difficult swim.
Oh. I'm getting better with my magic, but it's not good. Not great.
But you are working on it, you are practicing. And that is
Yes.
the important part.
Yes. Are there any mothers in here?
No. You hear actually a lot of claims of motherless going on.
From who?
Oh, just people arguing. Just all over.
Everywhere?
There's a lot of arguing.
Sage is gonna turn around, hold her hands out to the crowd and say, I am the foremother. You do not need to be motherless now.
Oh, Sage. I've missed you. You make life so interesting.
Is she?
A whole 2 weeks.
Are you? Is she always like this?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if your
Fun.
dream is an indication that you're going to be
Not
with
always.
us for a time, she's going to make your life interesting too.
Sage gets pelted with probably 4 or 5 fish heads, a beer.
Oh. Belmir. What do I do with these fish heads? Wait, Flora, what do I do with these fish heads?
Put them in the back in the trash.
Oh, I thought they
And
were
then-
food.
Flora looks over and she's like, Timothy, I saw that. You stick to throwing soft things at my friends or I'm cutting you off. No more food from me to you.
Okay. Anything else you would like to do in the Salty Squid tap room?
I would like to know what motherless means.
Sage, that's not a polite phrase. Don't repeat that.
Oh.
They mean
What?
it to insult one another, suggesting that they are lesser for their lack of a mother.
Then why did they get mad at me when I said I would be their mother?
Because many of them are just joking around, letting off steam, as it were. Relaxing.
Also, most of them are quite drunk. They'll throw things just for the fun of it.
That too.
Oh. It's not a joke. Don't joke about being motherless. Why don't we... How late in the day is it?
Late,
Oh,
like
so it's
night.
bedtime. Oh. That was a late afternoon swim.
Yeah. Round about sunset, you jumped off of the boat.
Ooh. Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. It's been a long day. Did a lot of swimming. Is there somewhere near here we can sleep?
Flora has a room here.
You can stay in my room.
You can probably arrange for the boys to get one.
I can get you a discount, Belmir. I can't quit yet. I still have to finish my shift. I should probably also turn in my notice that I'll be leaving.
They'll probably just hire back the old chef.
Maybe he'll have learned then.
That means Timothy gets fed.
Well, Timothy does have to eat. He's gotten a lot better about throwing hard things, though.
All right. So you adjourn to finish your shift / your rooms / sleeping. As you sleep, You all dream. You dream of sitting on a black sand beach at various tables. Through, for the first time, you recognize 3 of the people sitting at your table. The other 3 of you now recognize an additional person at yours. You recognize Olmthu and he recognizes you. The feast proceeds as it always has. And the storm kicks up as is expected. And that mirror shatters. But you don't awaken as you usually do. But you find yourself drawn to the table where you gather around and stare down at the shards of glass there. You see that it has shattered into 6 large pieces and a scattering of a bunch of small ones. For some reason, you reach out to lift one of those shards. And as you pick it up, it cuts you. And you awaken to that sharp pain of having been cut. And that pain is still in your hand. And you feel that pain kind of drift down your arm for a moment. And then it just kind of fades away. And all of you, as you awaken, you realize that you awaken exactly the same moment as your roommate. As you both kind of have that moment in your room.
Sage,
Yes.
did you have the same dream as before, or did it change this time?
It changed and it hurt.
It hurt me too. Even after I woke up, it still hurt.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't like that. I hope it quits doing that.
Me too. Do you think the black glass is in us now?
Oh, I hope not.
Me too.
Do you check your arm, Flora?
Yeah, she looks
Yes.
down at.
Okay.
Was it her right or her left hand?
Your
She would have
right
picked it up
hand.
with her right hand because that's her dominant hand.
Yep, whatever your dominant hand is. You check your arm. And in the dead center of your forearm, about right here, is what appears to be a tattoo. It is jet black. It is of a thin-bladed sword that has kind of a flame motif up behind it. It was definitely not there when you went to bed. You would have remembered getting a tattoo.
Sage, can I see your arm?
Yes.
Which hand did you pick up the shard with?
My left one.
I picked it up with my right one. Look, do you have one like that?
Do I have one like that?
You do. Exactly the same.
Yes. Oh no. Is it still a dream if things happen that are not in the dream?
I think that means it was more than a dream.
But what is it then? Because if it's in your head and only in your head and you are asleep, it is a dream. If it is out of your head and you see it, it is just the day
Or magic.
or magic. So is it not a dream? It is magic now.
A magic dream.
Magic dream. Oh,
Let's go find Belmir and Olmthu and see if they had the same dream.
okay.
Assuming we both also have this
Mhm.
sword image.
Yep. Yeah, upon checking your arm for the fact that there was a stinging pain there, you find there is this sword image.
Well, that is interesting. Is it the same for you, Belmir?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Belmir's gonna kind of pick and scratch at it.
It definitely hurts a lot when you do that, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Nothing happens to it.
It is. You've seen enough tattoos, Olmthu, in your life, and Belmir, you've seen several in Oberon. This is a well-healed tattoo. This is not a fresh seeming tattoo. What would you guys like
Knock,
to do
knock. Knock, knock, knock. Knock.
For some reason, Sage is standing outside your door saying knock, 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 knock.
Knock.
That was going to be my question.
Knock.
Open the door. Were you saying knock?
Yes. When I was learning magic, well, I'd go into the closet and the door would be closed. But she made everything silent. So I had to say knock to get out because it doesn't work otherwise. She won't hear it if I'm knocking because everything is quiet.
That's fantastic.
What? That I got shut in or that it was silent? Or that I had to say knock?
That you had a problem and you found a solution. And now you have an interesting story, a quirk, an experience.
Oh. Did you have an experience with your dream? It's not a dream, it's a magic dream now.
Yes. I assume you have the mark on your arm as well.
Yes.
Flora's like, look, Belmir, another magical tattoo. Do you think it changes like these do?
Ooh.
I just want to know where it came from.
The glass.
Fine. Where'd the glass come from?
The table.
Also, it might be helpful to know if it does anything.
Oh man. You say something like that to the curious hindrance?
No.
Why?
I mean, I picked at it and I didn't. All it did was hurt more.
Yeah, you really shouldn't pick at your skin. You'll get an infection.
Do you think I could cut it off?
No, I highly advise against that as your healer.
Okay. Are you sure?
Would you like a robot arm?
What's a robot arm?
Oh, there's
Sounds-
the Tinkerers and Oberon are trying to
Those dang gnomes.
figure out ways to.
Those
Yeah.
dang gnomes.
Gnomes and dwarves are trying to figure out how to replace limbs with
With machines?
machines.
That really doesn't sound like a good idea.
I mean, they haven't been able to rebuild the mole machine quite yet, but they keep trying.
There have been a lot of reports of sabotage.
It just autopilot took over. This one blew up. That one threw a gear. I don't know.
Does the tattoo feel warm?
Yep.
Or cold?
Nope.
Like warm,
Yeah, it's definitely warm.
warmer than the rest of me.
Mm-hmm.
Do I get any feelings from it?
Malice.
Oh. It is angry. Is it angry with you or is it angry with me? Or is it angry with someone else? Why are you angry? Sage says to the tattoo.
Okay. You speak to your arm.
Sometimes it works. You never know until you try.
Oh, now that you mention that, it is giving off a weird feeling. I don't like that.
Are you sure we shouldn't cut it off?
Will your arm grow back?
I don't mean the whole arm. I mean the tattoo. I didn't put it here.
I still would advise against that.
Okay.
Omthu, you said that the sand in the dream looked like the Empire of the Six Isles.
Well, I said that it was black sand, which is obviously not the sand around this area. The sands of Aluhai, they're the only ones I have heard of that are that color. And that does not necessarily mean that it is the same place. There may be others, but that's the only one I am aware of.
Which direction is that?
East.
So Flora's gonna hold her tattoo out in that direction. Stand there for a second, see if she feels anything, try a different direction.
All right, so for 30 seconds or so each direction, Flora holds her arm out in the directions of the compass. Nothing really seems to happen.
Does the image itself remind me of anything?
It definitely is heraldic almost. Like it's definitely got a heraldic kind of feeling to it.
Would I recognize it?
You can give me a roll. This will be an occult one.
6. We'll spend a penny. I rolled a 3. $11.
You said 11.
11, yes.
At one point during your travels, you had you were meeting with a scholar who turned up dead when you arrived to meet with them. You've seen this symbol before. You don't know what it is, but it was carved into the dead man's forehead.
I've seen this before, but not as a tattoo. It was carved into a man's head. I don't know if that means that we're marked.
I prefer having the tattoo version instead of the carved in my skin version. Also glad it's not on my head.
I'm also glad I'm not dead. Though.
Yes.
Do you have a relic? Wait.
Would I know that term?
I don't
Like,
have any
other than,
idea.
like,
I don't
relic
have
as
any
in-
idea what Chantel's talking about, so no.
Point. Haven't got into it.
If there's something specific about your character that you're talking about that I'm missing, you can fill me in.
I'm literally talking about the seed versus the book versus the entire druidic faith, apparently.
Nope. You don't appear to be that special, as far as you're aware.
Better question. Do you have a boat? If this place with the black sand, you have to have a ship or a boat to get to it. Do you have a ship or a boat?
My tribe has boats, yes. I am, unfortunately... I was never very good at sailing.
You're good at rowing.
And that is a lot simpler.
It's easier than swimming a long way.
Would I feel like I could ask someone within the Stormkites to be like, hey, me and
Yeah.
these people that I've just met need to go over and to this place?
Yeah, you definitely would.
But I can talk to someone, find someone willing to take us there.
We could pay them some. I've been saving almost all the money I've been making.
I will talk to them.
I saw my plot appropriate bag money from the future.
You mean you didn't spend it all?
I mean,
It's
Not all
been
of it.
interesting because despite having 5 years and having traveled all over the place where he could have probably spent a majority of it, every time he goes to pay for things, people are really surprised because Emir, the currency, is based upon the quality and the purity of the gemstones that it's from. The quality and purity of the gemstones from the future vastly outweighs anything that you have come across in what is now your modern era. So when you go to shell out cash, you're shelling out a lot less than you feel like you should be, just because of the quality of what you're shelling out.
I'm impressed, Belmere. Before, when we traveled together, you and Sage, well, you weren't very good at saving money.
What?
That's because Sage wants to buy exorbitant things, and somehow I lose those arguments.
It's a very nice stuff.
That's not even the... Whatever.
To be fair, Hope changed it, so it's not the same stuff I had. But it is
Not
the
even the
stuff
one
that
that we
I would have
paid for.
had. I think it's the stuff I would have had if we had gone 200 years into the future instead.
Wrong
Not
kind of
200.
wood.
Oh. Hope. It's nice, I suppose.
You are all such interesting people.
So are you.
I look at Sage and Flora and say, kind of in a low voice, say we should probably not mention the whole time travel stuff.
But
As interesting as they all are, they're made more interesting when you hear a rapping at the chamber window.
is there a raven?
There's a dove.
Oh, look, it's a dove. And Flora opens the window.
Yep. And it flies right over and sits on Belmer's shoulder.
Oh, Belmere, you have a friend.
Is it your baby?
What? This is not what dwarven babies look like. And I reach up and
Yeah, it's got the letter
Pull
tied
out.
around its leg. And as soon as you take it, it waits anticipatorily for the peanut that you always seem to give it. And then it flies away.
I read the letter.
Okay. The letter simply states that there are dark shadows on the horizon and that hope can't see past them. That she knows that you have been tempest-tossed for the past half a decade, and that she... the mystique of reading chat. That she misses all of you, and she hopes that you have found each other once again, because she feels that you'll need one another given whatever is coming.
Hope is glad that we're together. There's something coming. She doesn't know what. Or who, or from where.
I like that
But-
Olmthu is just like, who's Hope? How does she know
Olmthu,
whatever?
have a seat. Can I talk to you about our Lord and Savior, Hope?
We are from the future.
All right. So now that that's happened, I'll sit back and let this unfold for the next hour.
A terrible moment when you say something in jest. And the storyteller says, "You just said that."
It's all canon.
Does Sage actually hiss it like that though?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, there was a
Absolutely.
there was a pizza commercial in the U.S. for a long time, right after Domino's Pizza invented their like heat wave bag to keep pizza warm and keep pizza fresh. And I will always remember it because it's probably my favorite commercial ever. But in that commercial, the man shows up and he's like, "I have your pizza," and he opens it up and he calls it Sputnik Pizza. And there's this little tiny like packet in there that says "Just add water." And the guy's like, "That's my pizza." And he says, "Yeah, it's fresh. Fresh? It's so fresh. It's from the future." And that's what I just thought of right now.
So your Lord and Savior is hope. And you're from the future.
I wouldn't have
Yes.
quite put it that way, but they are technically correct, yes.
Except Hope is a little girl.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
I
that-
thought you meant the concept.
That
No,
raises
she's
an
like 5 or
interesting.
6.
That raises an interesting point. Hope was 5 years old when you left. None of you, save Flora, have been back to the tower. Flora, you were back in Haven just before coming here. She hasn't aged a day.
Yeah, Belmere, she's still about 5 or 6.
What is she supposed to be?
Well, seeing as how when we split up 5 years ago, she was 5 or 6. She should be 10 or 11, but she's still a 5-year-old that wants you to pick her up and carry her around.
Why would you get bigger if you can have people carry you around?
Belmer shakes his head and says, "Of course she hasn't aged."
Isn't there some kind of saying about hope springing eternal or something?
But it's not spring.
No, I meant the eternal part. It was spring a few months ago, though. Well, a month ago. It's early summer now.
I mean, sure, but
Question to storyteller then. Have the rest of us aged at all? Visibly.
Mm-hmm.
my beard went gray.
Your beard was whatever color it's supposed to be. Because
You
remember,
said it was gray at the
I
beginning
know.
of the session.
it went creepy. Remember, it went creepy color, and then your beard wasn't creepy color. But remember, you all also de-aged when you were brought
That's
back.
right. I was pod perfect.
Mm-hmm. You were
So
all
now-
at your prime, and now you have aged slightly. Like it's not like you're like withered, but no, you're. I said it was gray, but that's because I couldn't remember what color it's supposed to be.
That's
Good,
fine.
because I was going to say Flora's only 25 now. She better not be withered.
So there is this person, Hope.
Named Hope.
She has not aged in the past 5 years, but she can look into the future, which is where you are from.
Something like that. She doesn't talk. At least not in any of my interactions with her.
No, she still doesn't talk in person.
But she can see things that we can't. Whether it's the future, whether it's of things that are happening now but somewhere else. That's what my job is, to more or less figure out what she's trying to communicate and to spread her message of hope.
And what is the message?
Take it away, voice in the sky.
Hope. The message is hope. She likes to just say her name over and over again. It is hope.
Her message is that the world has evil within it, just as part of its nature. Everybody has seen it, everybody's felt it, everybody's dealt with its consequences. But that doesn't mean that the world is evil. And it doesn't mean that the world will ever have to drown in that evil. Because only when good people give up does evil win.
It is a good message. One I think I already subscribe to. More or less.
Where, or more accurately, when we come from, the world was in a terrible place. We made a deal, and that resulted in the four of us, the three here, and Hope, coming back to this time to try and pave a new destiny for Emios and for everyone here.
Interesting. Things must have been quite dire then, for that to be the option.
Well,
Certainly felt that way to me.
yes. The world was going to be destroyed by Kezrakai. Or there was going to be a war. And we made it happen, sort of. So we have to be very careful, because we've gone back now and we've stopped people from going anywhere near the gates, but we don't know if that will always be the case.
That's enough, Sage.
It is interesting, and not a little bit concerning. But I believe you.
Oh, finally. Somebody believes me. I've told a lot of people and none of them believe anything I say.
You've done what?
How am I supposed to find out anything if I don't ask people questions?
But there's some things that then everyone else shouldn't know about.
You also didn't just describe asking questions. You just described telling people your life story.
Yes.
All right, as long as we're clear.
How
I'm a
else do you
Terani.
lead into questions?
I have to voice in the sky. I have to tell people information for them to then know what the question is that I'm asking. And if they don't believe me to begin with, how am I supposed to follow up with questions?
I suggest leading with questions before you make them think you're a nutcase.
She's a talking tree. What else are people?
People don't believe me anyway. I don't make sense. 8,000 years ago.
I've known you for a while, and you don't make sense to me.
You could have included in the wish to be something else.
No.
Listen,
I'm a
voice in the
Terani.
sky.
I am Terani and I need to plant a seed, voice in the sky. I can't plant a seed if the seed is not in a Terani. Oh, now you're not going to believe me either because I'm talking to a voice in the sky.
I mean, many people do.
He comes from a tribe that worships the sea and the storm. Like, yeah, they hear voices in the sky pretty regularly. It's just the sound of thunder.
I hear voices on the wind.
As long as you're not a leaf on it.
Never.
Too soon.
Speaking of which, we could go outside of town and I could see if the voices have any opinions on whether we should go east or not. They don't, I can't hear them as well when I'm inside a noisy city.
Okay.
Okay. So at roughly 3 in the morning, you make your way to the gate. Are
You didn't tell us that we woke
It's
up
true.
at
We
3 in the
didn't ask what
morning,
time it was.
But okay. Flora's comfortable with nature. Daytime, nighttime. Let's go.
Are you going out the gate, which admittedly in Squall's End is open 24/7? Are you renting a boat and going out on the ocean and listening to the ocean spirits? Like, what are we doing here?
She doesn't have a lot of experience with the ocean yet, so she's probably going out the gate.
Okay. All right. So, in the wee hours of the morning, Flora leads you out the gate to the Rough Rider Road to the north. And you hike for probably about an hour before you really come to a place where nature seems prevalent as a thing. Give me your roll.
$22.
Okay, then. Well, from the fog in the distance, you hear kind of this snorting and snuffling sound, all the rest of you. And Flora, it's a sound you recognize. And you hear kind of the sound of hoofs, just very small ones. And that sound is getting closer. And then from the mist, and the fog bursts a boar. Although this boar is slightly off looking, mostly because, it's seemingly made out of mist. And it tackles Flora and snuffles against Flora's face and is very excited to see Flora there. And it's there.
And she pulls a cracker out of her pocket, and you see it start to glow, and then she holds it out for him.
Okay. Yep. It eats it. And looks at her very expectantly.
Have a question for you. See, I've recently acquired this. I know it's concerning.
It gets down in that kind of like crouch sort of battle pose. Like a dog waiting to pounce. But, a boar.
And I've told you about those dreams that I've been having. And Omthu here, this is my new friend Omthu. Omthu,
He kind of like nuzzles Omthu's ankle.
this is my friend. He's a boar.
Hello.
Also, he's a nature guardian. Anyway,
Omthu holds out his hand. He goes, my name is Omthu. What is your name?
And he presses his nose against your palm. And you hear all of you just this kind of whisper across the mist. And he tells you that his name is... I lost it. Hang on. I wrote it down.
Boris.
You're dead to me, and I need another Benny. You're just running through Benny's bad today. His name is... Still missing. His name is Titus.
Titus. It is a pleasure to meet you.
And on that same wind, you hear a very familiar kind of orcish of the Stormkite sentiment, which is that may the winds ever flow behind your sails, and may your oars always cut the water.
so Titus, Omthu said that the sand in the dreams that we've been having looks like it could possibly be from Aluha. That's to the east. And I was wondering if you would know if we should go that direction.
The sands of Aluhai are indeed black sands, but as are the sands in Vehikaris on the southern end, and as are the sands in Shuye, as are the beaches of Stau Trana.
That's a lot of different places.
Yes.
And you don't get any specific feelings from this malevolent tattoo on my arm of which direction it might be connected to.
The tattoo is of those who seek to defile what you hold dear. It is a tattoo of those who end life rather than nurture it.
Great. Any suggestions for how to get rid of it?
Discover its purpose and who put it there.
All right. That's about what I thought.
All of your journeys will take you east, because all of those locations are to the east of here.
Well, that's at least a good start. Thank you, Titus.
And
She
he
gives him a good scratch.
takes the scratch and then runs back off into the mists.
So could the rest of you hear what he was saying?
Only if it was directed toward them like the words were to when he introduced himself. Everything else was only... It sounded just like... I mean, it was very windy for a little bit.
What did we hear?
He introduced himself as Titus.
Oh, that's all we heard.
Yep.
Okay.
And then Olmthu heard the orcish platitude. But the rest of it was all just a flora.
So from those looks, I take it you didn't hear the rest of what he said.
No, just that his name is Titus.
He gave me a list of some other places that also have black sands. He doesn't know which of the places could be connected to our dreams. But they're all east of here, so we can at least get started in that direction. Also, the tattoos are a bad thing. And he has no idea how to just make them go away right now.
Going.
Well, the other places with black sand, which I am now going to proceed to ruin the pronunciations of, are Shuya and Vaikara and Stau Trana?
Stau Trana?
Shuye Veakaris on the southern portion of the continent, and Stau Trana.
Is Viacaris where I was?
You spent most of your time in the northeastern section, but yes.
Do I remember Black Sand?
Nope.
Was there
Veakaris is a
Black Sand?
fairly substantially sized and continent.
Wait a second. Did I find one of the missing continents?
No,
Oh.
Veakaris has always been there.
Oh. I'll just put that back into my, side quests.
Okay, what do you want to do?
What's the like from the town? What's the easiest way to get back to the storm kites?
You just gotta get a boat. You live on an island offshore.
Olmthu, can your people get us to Vekaris or to Elihu?
Aluhai?
Aluhai. Gosh dang it. I have it written down.
We'll get there eventually.
Someday.
Aluhai, yes. Vekaris is kind of outside of your hunting grounds, essentially. But Aluhai you can get to. At least to the westernmost isle. And then once you're there, it kind of becomes inter-island transport. Because Aluhai is the empire of the Six Isles, right? It's 6 islands that make up this empire, as the name would suggest.
Yes, we will be able to get there. If that is where we need to go.
As long as you promise that we won't sink, because I don't know how to swim.
Why not?
I never had a need to.
There's
No,
not
you
much
do.
pools underground.
The sea does not make such promises. But my people have been riding. We've been doing this for a long time. You should be fine.
So, you guys make your way to a coastal region where a signal fire can be lit in a specific pattern. You watch as Omthu lays out a number of fires in a very intricate distancing on the beach and informs you that you will need to wait for nightfall. Your time passes fairly uneventfully. I'm getting strange looks from Chantel.
Nightfall? So 3 a.m. through to the next day.
Mhm.
Nightfall?
Yeah, because by the time you
Okay.
finish up there, it's starting to become daylight. And
Right,
he's
right, right.
lighting signal fires that need to be
Okay.
seen.
Trying to summon a taxi from the other side of the water.
Yep.
It's gonna
I
take time.
understand.
Yep. So you wait until nighttime. You spend some time getting to know each other a little bit. If there's any of those conversations you would like to have, you are welcome to. Otherwise, we'll proceed with the lighting of the signal fires and the arrival of the Stormkite Corsairs that arrived to take you home.
Why did you have the dream?
Why did you?
I don't know.
Bad things happen to us all the time.
Yes. That is why.
It's been a largely quiet 5 years.
It's been a nice 5 years, but it's time for bad things to start happening again. Belmir will make bad choices. Flora will make tasty food. I will wander off.
Oh, are you? Oh, you are still doing that, huh? The last 5 years has been one big wandering off.
Well, wander off and then stay in stay in a closet for nighttime. One closet, though, not lots of closets. So I stopped wandering. And now I'm wandering again. But I got told to, so it's okay.
So you'll only wander off if we tell you it's okay? Or do we need to find a closet to put you in at night?
Storyteller, has Sage learned to lie in 5 years? I don't need a closet. I like sleeping under the sky.
Your closet did have a window.
That's not a closet, that's a room. We've
Nah.
had this talk about what constitutes a bedroom in the US.
Right, but
We've
it's
had
not
this
that
discussion.
big. And that didn't start with a window.
Oh, okay.
A window was
She
put
put
there.
one in. Okay. I appreciate that.
I envisioned that was created by Sage when she screwed up a spell. It just blasted a hole in the side of the tower.
Oops. Would not be surprised.
We can go with
Flora
that. That's fine.
pats your arm and says, "It's okay, Sage. I wouldn't put you in a closet anyway."
Okay. Would you put me in your bag with the seasons?
I've never tried putting anything living in there.
Oh, so you do
That's
still
fair.
have it.
Oh, yeah.
Did you figure out what ice cream was?
Oh, yeah.
It's really good. Soon as the bag has snowflakes in it again,
You have
And I
actually
find
figured
some-
out how to determine what seasonal thing you want to pull out of the bag at this point.
I learned how to control the season that is in the bag. What season the bag represents inside, I don't understand it all. I'm still learning. But yes, I can make you some ice cream.
Now, if you wanted, there's like a bunch of like wild fruits around and totally doable.
Flora makes ice cream then. Before bed. Because that's the best time to eat it.
Get your friendly plant hopped up on sugar right before bed. Good idea.
That doesn't need to sleep in a closet and won't wander off.
Yeah, so you get some like delicious like grapefruit kind of sorbet. Because you don't have cream, to be fair. But you're able to make a sorbet. It's also pretty good. It is not like anything Omlu has ever had.
Okay, so technically this isn't ice cream, it's sorbet. But you know, pretty much the same difference. And next time we're in a place with cream, I'll make you ice cream.
This is fantastic.
It's also a little bit scary that she just produced snow and ice out of her satchel. Which I think is the part of this that Sam didn't understand was happening. But yeah, Flora essentially just reaches into her satchel and produces snow and ice.
Oh.
Throughout the course of the day, Belmir has been watching Ulf to figure out, see how lost he is, how confused he is by the three of us.
Fascination and like is probably the better reaction. How are you able to do that?
Well, I can use nature magic and Caltriana. Ignore the train. Works better with Paddington Prowler than Emios. The Spirit of Winter gave me this bag as a gift.
Very impressive. You should tell me the story one day.
It's an interesting story.
I
And
imagine
it
it
can be found on
is.
YouTube in its entirety. Okay, so you arrange your specific bonfires. And the bonfire you light as it begins to get dark. And it doesn't take very long. It's about an hour and a half later or so. And you hear drums on the horizon. And you can see a craft larger than the craft from yesterday, because you did in your signal fire let them know how many there were to pick up. Excuse me. And it beaches. And Kenna and another orc jump down and greet you. And then as they look around, Kenna gets a very concerned look on her face. I thought you were just dropping her off in that tavern, not bringing her with you home. It's a little bit different than a puppy.
I'm not a puppy, I'm Terani. We
Also,
talked about this.
You'd be surprised how much like a puppy.
Hey,
I've noticed.
In a good way. In a good way. All the cute things about puppies.
puppies are cute.
Kenna, these people, they have all been having the same dream as I have. Exactly the same. Believe we will need to go east to Aluhai if we wish to know more.
To Aluhai. You think Sevrod's going to sign off on that?
I think I need to ask.
I hope you guys can pay well.
We have a lot of money.
Sage, you're not supposed to say that.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Right. Well, let's go then. And you guys begin your journey across the waves. And go ahead and give me a notice roll, everyone.
Two.
15.
8.
5.
Okay. So, both Kenna and the other person rolled a 1 and a 2. So, as you are riding, the 5, you begin to notice strange ripples in the moonlight, in the water. The 8 and the 15, the 8 and the 13, apparently, you begin to notice the ripples are appearing at various points around the boat, and there are almost like boiling water kind of bubbles there. And so you are not surprised when from one of those bubbling pools, one of those bubbling kind of eddies in the water, a massive kind of appendage lashes out and drags the unnamed, because he's not important, orc off of the bow of the ship and into the water.
Through what is that?
What is that?
Yeah.
You said we weren't going to die.
You
I'm pretty sure I
promised
said
me,
the sea will not make those kinds of promises.
It is the equivalent of a very small kraken. And so as as the boy is pulled off into the water, Kenna begins to drag the rudder hard and shouts, "Kraken!" really, really loud. And as she, broadsides the boat up out of the water, you see these 6 massive tentacles and just this kind of broad sort of head. And we're going to come back next Wednesday to fight a kraken. So, thank you everybody who joined us this evening for Aeternium Gate. I hope everybody had a good time. I've been your host and storyteller, Eric Taylor. Just a reminder, we will be back on Saturday morning for Unlawful Disorder at 8 a.m. Eastern, where you can find Chantel and Sam, as well as Drew Wilson and Jamie Collette. And Michelle Valancourt runs that game in the Open Legend system, so go check them out. That'll be over on twitch.tv/DoRespite rather than here on YouTube. And then no Far From Home this week. But you can find us back here on YouTube on Monday for Paddington. So, with that, Shawnee, how is game? How is being Sage?
I missed Sage. I like Sage. Sage is fun. Sage is where I let out all of childhood me, which is probably problematic, but yeah. You can find me on Twitter at that thing somewhere. You can find me at wordswithcolor.com. You can find me on Saturday 1 p.m. Eastern for a game on Saving Throw Show for their Alzheimer's.
For the longest day charity stream.
The longest day charity stream. That's the one. I'm not good with that, but I did it. But yeah, that was fun. It's fun meeting a new person, having to be like, here, have all the information that you could ever want and all the information you don't.
It's true. Speaking of new people, Sam, how's game?
Great. Yeah. I think you're gonna find that like on through, likes being given information. So he will take that in stride. But yeah, this was great. This was a lot of fun.
Well, welcome to Emios. You notice none of your party was really that surprised by the appearance of a kraken as a thing, so that should give you a danger level bar.
I mean, it wasn't a Borberkian, so
Nope.
In fact, it was just a kraken, and I'm glad.
Yeah, I mean, you guys faced the kraken that ran under the sand, so like,
Oh, is that what that was? Oh, no. Everything's fine.
that was what that was. Frito, how's game?
Game was good. I learned that A, I'm bad at pronunciation. Math is hard.
It's okay. Apparently, everyone's bad at pronunciation. It's fine.
Game was
Yeah.
good.
Oh,
It was fun.
And Sarah, how's game?
it was fun. I also missed Sage.
Alrighty. Well,
She's just a little bundle of chaos.
something like that. Alrighty. Well, on behalf of my wonderful cast, Chantel, Frito, Sarah, and Sam, I've been Eric Taylor. This has been Aeternium Gate by Do Respite. Good night. Good luck. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Love one another. And we'll see all of you Saturday morning on Twitch for Unlawful Disorder. Bye.